Our program today we'll be hearing and engaging candidates from the upcoming Montana legislative primaries. John Horner, our Vice President of Advocacy, will be the moderator. And this is John.
Okay. Thanks, Diane. Welcome. Thanks again for everyone coming today. It's important for us to stay engaged as a community, so we at the MDA definitely appreciate you all coming down, getting a little more educated with what's happening with our downtown and what's going to be hopefully representing us in our state legislature. Today we want to basically hear from the candidates on what their thoughts are on the various things that are happening downtown. What we're going to do is give each candidate about 3 minutes to introduce themselves and their campaign. And we're going to try and hold them to about 3 minutes on that initially. And then we're going to open the floor to questions that any of you might have directed towards the candidates so that we can get some dialogue going back and forth on what their opinions are and what they hope to do when they get into Helena. We'll start right here with Tom, and it's fine for you guys just to stay seated. It'll probably pick up better on the microphone, and I hope that's fine with everybody else, but if you just stay seated, that'll work.
I had a little song and dance planned, so you're not going to get that, I guess. Hi, my name is Tom. My name is Tom Facey. I'm born in Helena, came to Missoula in 1972 to go to the university, started teaching in 1976. Started teaching Missoula at 1979 at Meadow Hill School. Taught at Meadow Hill and Rattlesnake, and now in my 7th year at Sentinel High School. I was in the legislature from 1999 to 2006. I was Democratic caucus leader in 2001. During that tenure, I was able to get several bills passed. I introduced 51, got 16 passed. One bill was to start the televising process of the legislature. Another bill I was proud of was to reimburse families for their travel and lodging expenses when they went to take care of injured workers when they were out of town. And the third one was to help high school kids start college earlier. It was a project called Running Start, where it allowed universities and the school districts to form cooperative agreements to have high school kids take college classes for reduced tuition. The state of Montana does 3 things. We incarcerate, we medicate, and we educate. On the incarceration part, obviously institutions, probation, parole, trying to do that as efficiently as possible and bring the costs down. On the medicate, we have a social net that we maintain, help with provider rates. They're important for all of us. And the educate part, K-12 and the university system. In the mid-'80s, the state of Montana contributed 70% of the money for the K-12 system, and the property taxpayer was 30%. Now that has shrunk to the state's only providing 60% of the support for the K-12 system, and the property taxpayer is providing 40%. That increase in the dependence on property taxes worries me. Also, we obviously support the university system. I'm concerned that tuition is getting higher and higher. I believe that a good education system is the foundation of a good economy. Business machine tax, I'd like to see maybe the threshold. Am I 3 minutes up yet?
Pretty close, you're fine.
On the business machine tax, to help small businesses, I'd like to see the threshold raised where we do not assess a business machine tax on your business if your business machine is below. I think now the threshold is $50,000. If we could raise that to $70,000 or $80,000, I think that'd be beneficial for small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Teresa Henry, and I currently represent House District 96, which is half of the Senate district, and I have for the last 6 years. During the last legislative session, I chaired the Joint Appropriations Subcommittee on Health and Human Services, so I am fairly familiar with one-third of that large section of the budget. My background is, I've lived in Montana for 21 years, I lived in Great Falls for 3 years, and I've lived in Missoula for 18. I moved here for my husband, and he's a Montana, that was the first conversation we ever had. Additionally, I think one of the things that I bring to the position is the ability to try to look at some balance, or to attempt to balance with the appropriations. We will have to look at and try to deal with the fact that we have lower income and we have significantly needed services. So how will we balance those? Another way that I struggle to add my experience to the balancing act is I'm a nurse, and for the last, more than 25 years, I've been an occupational health and community health nurse. So I worked for a consulting company and went to all the plants that make Kingsford charcoal and Clorox bleach and litter green kitty litter, and I was the San Francisco zoo nurse for one day a month. So what I got used to there and believe I can bring to this experience is the idea that it is possible to do manufacturing and have worker safety and environmental safety involved with that and still make a profit, because truth be told, unemployment has a higher morbidity and mortality rate to it than coal mining. So I'm aware of attempting to try to do that. One of the ways that I would work on that, attempt to address that, is to the supporting of some of the small business areas and small business development. I think we'll have to look at ways to provide support for either tax rebates or something like that. We are going into a situation where we cannot raise taxes, and the governor is committed to not raising taxes, and I'm committed to try to do the best we can with the funds that we have with those. I teach for the university. My paycheck, I shouldn't say this on graduation weekend, but my paycheck comes from Bozeman. I'm an MSU employee. I've been working on the U of M campus for, as I said, 18 years. So I have experience in healthcare, education. I've been a manager of health services for a mainframe computer company, and so I have some occupational and environmental health experience there. I think I'll leave it and let it be open for questions if you have additional questions to ask.
Thank you. Bryce?
Hi. Oh, sorry. It's really, I thought you were just joking when it was so loud. It was really, really loud. My name is Bryce Bennett. I'm running as a Democrat for House District 92. And I'll just start off with answering the question that I hear the most at the doors. I'm 25 years old. And in that short amount of lifespan, I think that I've accomplished a lot and given me a lot of great experience that will make me a good legislator to represent this district and represent Montana. I've worked to protect our rivers from the threat of cyanide leach mining. I've worked on healthcare reform, pushing Senator Tester and Baucus to support healthcare reform and specific things like the public option. I worked on the campaign to raise our minimum wage and helped elect Barack Obama in 2008. I worked with the 2009 legislature, working for the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Committee and the Federal Relations, Energy, and Telecommunications Committee, which gave me a lot of great experience about what happens at the legislature and how to be effective. So I think combining those two things of being, working in the trenches for the important causes that matter to this area and working at the legislature and knowing how to get things done will make me a very effective legislator, especially right on day one. When it comes to next year, I think we all know that the budget is going to be limited, and that means that it's going to be about priorities. And for me, those priorities have to be progressive causes that move our economy forward. Things like investing in renewable energy, providing those incentives to bring to our state, to make sure that the wind and the solar and the biodiesel companies can come into our state and create green jobs. Protecting our environment for future generations, because for generations our quality of life has been what's brought people to our state, and I think that we'll continue to do that in the future. And finally, I think that education is absolutely critical to making sure that our economy can move forward, because just as both of these great candidates were saying, education is absolutely critical to making sure that the higher paying jobs come to our state. So I think that I have the right experience, both in the legislature and in the real world, to be an effective advocate for the people of House District 92 and for the people of Montana. And I'm eager to hear your questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Don Harbaugh. I'm running for House District 92, as is Royce. I'm not going to tell you how old I am. And nobody asks, which is nice. I'm a native of Montana. Was born in Jordan, Montana, on a cattle ranch. Did 5 years in exile in Washington, where I went to school, and was fortunate enough to come back to Missoula in 1965 as a teacher at Sentinel High School. I was in the education system, the Missoula County High School system, from 1965 until 1988. The last 20 years of that experience, I was the principal at either Sentinel High School or Hellgate High School. And from that point of view, I think I was able to gain a tremendous amount of insight into the community, the people, the families, the needs of our area. It almost goes without saying that I think education is the most important aspect and responsibility of state government. I, like the other candidates, agree that we're going to see a legislative session that probably isn't going to be a lot of fun. There isn't going to be enough money to go around, and the name of the game will be to prioritize. After I left Hellgate High School principalship, I was in a small business, partner in an independent multi-line insurance agency for 12 years. It was a tremendous learning experience for me. I found out that in a small business, sometimes if you're the owner, you're the last one to get paid, and sometimes the one that doesn't get paid. And that gave me a new appreciation of what it takes to make it on Main Street in Missoula, Montana. The last few years, I've been retired in the Upper Rattlesnake. I've been involved in various volunteer organizations. Have 9 grandkids, 3 kids. With watching that process with them, I see the progress that the schools have made, and I'm aware of the progress that we need to continue to make. And I see our leader giving me the eye. I'll take questions later.
Good afternoon. Missoula puts its best foot forward in downtown. Downtown is the intersection of all the elements of life in this valley, from the high rollers to the low rollers, from art and finance, business and technology, nonprofits and government, to schmoozing and shopping. That's why I so strongly support downtown, as it renews itself, matures, and evolves through its master plan. Downtown is about attracting investment to create jobs. To do that, it needs certain things, like good, updated, and well-maintained infrastructure, housing that offers a variety of options, like condos, work-live situations, even a university dorm. It needs a transportation system that accommodates all users, supports alternative modes, and is open to new ideas like an electric car share program. And most important, it needs an atmosphere and environment that supports buying locally, to support local, because after all, these businesses are our families and friends. What I bring to the table is I am a resident of my district and have been for 30 years, so I am connected to the people and the place of my district. And our district is half of the slant streets, the Lewis and Clark area, the Far Views, and a smidgen of the South Hills. I bring also 30 years of community involvement, beginning with co-founding Hospice of Missoula to working downtown for 17 years at Adventure Cycling, which also included my 10 years on the City Council. I've been involved with a number of boards and organizations, such as the Missoula Farmers Market, and I was also the director of the Missoula Urban Demonstration Project. This history that I bring gives me community and legislative experience that I can bring to Helena to work for you. I would be the only legislator out of the 15 people from the Missoula delegation that has local government experience. This hard-won experience, through that I have learned that it's more important to make relationships than to make a point. It's important to involve the people in decisions that affect their lives and their businesses. And that to be effective, you have to be consistent and follow through. People want to know that the person that they send to Helena listens to them, reflects their values, represents their issues, and will fight for those issues.
Thank you, Luann. Ellie?
Hi, everyone. My name's Ellie Hill. I'm a lifelong Rocky Mountain Westerner, the daughter of a union worker, the sister of a smoke jumper, the wife of a rabid fly fisherman and hockey player. I'm a product of Title IX athletics. I'm a former district attorney, and now I'm the executive director of the Poverello Center, which, as we all know, is a pretty high-profile nonprofit in this community. I come from a working-class family. My mom and dad and husband are actually in here today. My dad, Mike Boldman, he's a Vietnam veteran, and he took one-night class a semester for 27 years. We graduated from college together. I still believe that hard work and education provides the keys to almost everything. My husband and I deeply love this community. We have invested our futures here, including in 2 downtown properties, one being the historic Warden residence, the oldest house in Missoula. I also believe that to much is given, much is expected. I was elected the precinct captain and congressional committee woman for the Missoula County Democrats. I've served on the board of directors of the Sustainable Business Council. I'm the co-chair for the Missoula chapter of the New Leaders Council, and I'm a proud Sunrise Rotarian, as I see my Rotary president out there. I have served our downtown as a representative on the Heart of Missoula's Neighborhood Council, both as its president and a representative of downtown on the Community Forum. I have 2 different memberships to the Missoula Downtown Association. I've participated in the Roots Festival, the Holiday Parade. I served on the Downtown Master Plan Steering Committee. I now serve on the Mayor's Downtown Advisory Commission. I live downtown in the Wilma Theater. Through my service at the Poverello Center and its 4 facilities, we serve about 350 impoverished Missoulians every day, 24 hours a day. Since I came to the Poverello Center, it's been voted Missoula's best nonprofit for 4 years in a row, and I've been voted Missoula's best activist for the past 3. I was also named by the Missoula Independent as one of the 35 people you should know in Missoula. I believe a quality of life tax, we pay one to live here in Montana, and how we spend our money defines our values. I'm running for the legislature because we need to really pay attention now to how our spending represents these values. I believe that corporations are not people. I believe in an education that enriches children's lives and equips them for the future, and there is nothing more important in this state than the quality of a public education. I believe that Montanans are rugged individualists, and I believe in the unconditional right for women to make their own medical decisions about their body. I believe in equality for all Montanans, economic justice, and investing in affordable housing. I believe that a moral society cares about the health care of its people. I will be a champion for the stewardship of Montana's constitutional guarantee of a clean and healthful environment, and and I think we should invest in clean energy and green jobs. I will be one of very few legislators who's actually prosecuted DUIs, and we have to make Montana's highways safer by immediately changing these statutes.
Thank you, Ellie. Sue?
Hi, my name is Sue Malek, and I'm running for re-election to House District 98. And I wanted to thank you all for inviting us here today, for caring about Missoula, and most of all, for caring about downtown and making it a better place because we all treasure it so much. When you serve in the legislature, you quickly learn that the issues are extremely complex, that senior representatives and senators have dealt with the same issues multiple times, that it takes 4 or 5 tries to pass legislation, and that you can never do anything on your own. It takes working together. And that's why I really wanted to express my appreciation to you being here, because only by working with you will we be able to do good things for Missoula. My interests are in good jobs, quality education, protecting the environment, and making sure all of us have the basic services we need to keep us active in our communities. I believe the economic future of our state will be rooted in agriculture, education, tourism, and increasingly in the development of alternative energy. I had the privilege yesterday to go to a symposium for George Dennison, who you know is retiring from the University of Montana. The president of Ohio State University spoke, and he said, "This is not a recession. This is a basic restructuring of our entire culture and economy." And when we all ask ourselves, what's next, I think we need to think about the baby boomers retiring in large numbers in future years. And we baby boomers are going to be consuming less. We have a group of young people coming up, and my son, and I am very proud of my son who is amongst them. They have a lot of energy and optimism. They're philanthropic and involved in their communities. They want to eat local and healthy. They want to conserve and live lightly for the environment. And we need to empower them to develop the new technologies and products that will lead our state to a brighter future. Missoula is an optimistic, can-do kind of place. We saw that on Mother's Day when the M was transformed into Mom. We see that in our downtown master plan. We see that in our support in Missoula for all levels of education, particularly for the University of Montana, which is so important to our city and our state. I will be working on legislation to promote solar installation in homes and businesses, to tighten DUI laws, and to support education K through 12, COTs, and the universities. I am proud of the work we did in the last session. We are one of only 3 states, I think there are still 3, whose budgets are still in the black, and we are committed to providing basic services to our cities, our state, and our citizens within a balanced budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, see how loud this is. Hello, I'm Barnett. I'm running for House District 99. I believe the only district from all the different candidates here that's up on the Flathead Indian Reservation. I live about a football field away from the Lake County line, so I'm pretty far up north. A little bit about myself here before I get into what I believe in is I am a graduate of Salish Kootenai College, the tribal college in Pablo. A lot of my constituents are Native American and a lot of them are not. I am both Native American and European and non-Native American. I have 6 children my wife and I have raised in this area for the last 20 years. My children have all gone to one college or another in the state of Montana. I find education very important, and I believe Montana has excellent education. My past background is basically in the helping field, helping others. I'm the former director of Safe Harbor. I was the first and only, even as of today, director of a nonprofit shelter that helps women and kids that are escaping from domestic violence. I have worked pro bono for many years through Montana Legal Services and through other private corporations as an expert witness in court. I got my education from Tribal Trial College in Seattle, and also from the Collaboration for Positive and Peaceful Solutions from the Emerson Cultural Center in Bozeman, Montana. I've done a lot of basically volunteer work. My kids and I are all semi-professional musicians, and we started up 7 years ago an organization called Musicians Rocking Against Violence. Our whole goal is to try to get young people into music and get them into something that's positive in their life. We, in the past 7 years, have held 28 concerts to raise funds for various organizations that help children in both Lake County and the Missoula community through the Zach House, which was one of the great new art communities here in Missoula, and also through Toys for Tots and Toys for Res Kids, a program that we started 2 years ago. Last year we raised over 30 bags of toys for kids from the community support, having volunteers from our Musicians Rocking Against Violence Foundation. So it's pretty cool. I'm just an ordinary average Joe. I'm not a professional politician, nor do I plan on being a professional politician. I live on a small little ranch up by Arley. I have bears come into my yard. I deal with them getting in my garbage and my cows getting loose. All day long I do work in Missoula, however, and I work for a great company, HKJ Incorporated, and it is the company I work for basically is hard to describe how much positive influence we have on the community. It's part of Winds of Change Mental Health Center, and one of the things that I believe that Missoula has a problem with that needs to be addressed is access to mental health services. I wrote a grant with the help of one of my colleagues this year to get some funding to start a startup program to have a jobs program for people with severe and disabling mental illness.
Right. Thank you. We're going to move on. Thanks. Betsy.
Hi, my name is Betsy Hands, and I represent House District 99. Can you hear me? I got to turn it on.
The top there.
Thank you. You bet. My name is Betsy Hands. I serve House District 99. I represented House District 99 in 2007 and 2009, and during those sessions was on the Natural Resources Committee, local government, state admin, and during the interim I serve on the audit committee. When I first decided to run for election, it was because of my civic engagement in downtown issues and my work at Homeward. I worked at Homeward, which is a local nonprofit that develops affordable housing and offers homebuyer education classes and financial education classes for those most in need, and really advocates for sustainability in those projects that they build. And in that capacity, I really realized the importance of being engaged in the bigger level for our state. So during the last two sessions, I think I became a very staunch advocate for a clean and healthful environment, and I became very well known for my advocacy on affordable housing. And this last year, I've had the opportunity to work for the Western Governors Association, which is a regional bipartisan group that looks at public policy issues, and my primary focus has been on renewable energy development and transmission planning. So in that capacity, I really feel prepared for this next session. If I were elected, I think that I could play a very strong role in understanding how energy in whatever form plays a critical role in economic development. And what we have to provide in Montana is quite amazing. And it could be what will help multiply some of the opportunities we have for economic development. The fellowship has also really afforded me the opportunity to take a strong look at my district and at Missoula and at Montana, and listen to folks, both constituents as well as businesses, on their needs. And I think that's what I really bring to this session, besides the experience of the past 2 sessions, a real openness to knowing that this is kind of a changing time. And we need to really be able to listen to each other about innovative solutions, forward-thinking businesses, and ways for us to invest in the future. And the one thing that I'd like to share is we, in February, had to go to the legislature to learn about our budget issues and what the projections were for our revenues. And as a legislator from Missoula, it's devastating to hear those types of projections, because we always go with a handful of things that we want to accomplish in terms of investing further in mental health programs and in our education and in our infrastructure and all the things that we can list as our passions. What I think that we're going to need to do is really be open to our constituents telling us what is the most important to them for this session and protecting that. And one thing I hear quite often is education. And so while I do not serve on the education committee, I'm really committed to looking at that as a priority for us if I were elected in 2011, and understanding that it is the foundation for our ability to invest in businesses, in services that we need for future generations.
Thank you, Betsy.
Thank you.
Kandi?
Kandi Matthew-Jenkins. And I don't belong to the Constitutional Party, I belong to the Constitution Party. So you kind of know already where I stand. As a small business owner in Missoula for 22 years, I've owned the Montana Craft Connection. At one time, we had an on-street location. Somehow that was lost shortly after my bid for mayor of Missoula. But I'm still in business, and I still understand the effects that government has on the ability to do business. One of my main concerns is that we take a look at the laws in this state that affect business and the taxes that affect business and put them back into perspective in their constitutional realm, to where we are not overtaxing our business, over licensing fees our business community, and protecting those rights of the business owners above the rights of government, and put the government back into its constitutional restraints here in Montana, and also in our state sovereignty as far as it goes with federal mandates that come into the state that add to our tax base. I am the vice chair of the Constitution Party of Montana. I'm a mother of 6 children. All of them are grown. All of them went through their education in Missoula. They are all employed or seeking further education. Excuse me, I always shake at this and I don't understand why. I have 4 grandchildren now, 3 grandsons and a granddaughter. So I am vested in their future, which is vested in the small business community and in small businesses, which are the backbone of this nation, and that's how we got to start way back when with our founding fathers. Those were not corporations. I have nothing against corporate business whatsoever. I do find that there are certain corporations that are not conducive to good employment. How can I say it? They are more in the area of slave owners than they are actual employers. And would love to see that improved a lot. I have been the director of Birthright of Missoula in the 80s. It is now First Way. This is my 7th campaign. I live in House District 99, and it's changed quite a bit from when I first ran. I have, I believe, to be extensive experience now in the legislature. I've been testifying there since March of 2002. I kind of gave up on most of the issues that I testified on because I noticed that most legislators are pat you on the back, give you half an ear, and walk away. The only thing I can tell you is that I'm not going to be that kind of legislator. I am going to be the stand-up person that defends the rights of the people and their constitutional protections. I'm not into social issues. I don't believe government belongs in social issues. I believe in the right of privacy in your own homes and your own businesses. And I believe that government should be restricted to what government has been given power in. If you call me, I will call you back. I'm here to hear what your needs and wants are and how they balance out with what is good for the state, the community, whether it be downtown. I'm not agendized to any certain thing. I believe that a thriving downtown is essential for any city. I have lived in Montana since 1971. I am originally from Chicago, Illinois, and I can tell you what happens to a downtown that becomes overburdened, overcrowded, and with little oversight. It's not a very pretty sight. Thank you.
Thanks. Michele joined us just a little bit late, but we had her on our list, so we're going to come back this way to Michele. So is that on?
Thank you very much. I apologize for being late. In addition to being a legislator, I'm also a law student, and I just survived a 3-hour criminal procedure final exam. And I tried to get here as soon as I could upon completion of that. So I have 1 down and 3 more to go. So I take a break and then I have to go back to studying. But thank you for taking the time to be here and for having us, and thanks for allowing me to participate in spite of being late. I have represented House District 97 for the past 2 legislative sessions, and I'm running for a 3rd term. I have served on the Business and Labor Committee for the past 2 sessions, local government, as well as natural resources. Prior to going to law school, I used to work for the Office of Planning and Grants as a land use planner, implementing subdivision regulations and rezonings. And I've seen many of you when I worked in that capacity. I have a passion for trying to reform the Montana Code Annotated. It needs a lot of work. And as you know, there's too much to do and not enough time to do it. So I definitely appreciate your ideas. If you have ideas that you want to bring forward, we also need your support. It can be very lonely in committee if you're representing a good idea all by yourself. So I would ask that if you have some things that you would like to bring forward that you encounter as frustrations to economic development or to improving the quality of life, that you would be willing to write that legislation or work with us to write it, work with legislative services, that you would attend the committee hearings, and that you would mobilize other people to be there and to contact legislators. There are a lot of good ideas that legislators often don't learn about. And so I encourage you, because it is a citizen legislature and because we don't have a lot of time as individuals, that it really takes your help to improve those laws. And those laws they impact our lives in many ways. If you're familiar with transportation dollars and the gas tax, I took on the Department of Transportation to make sure more of that money that we generate here in Missoula comes back to Missoula. The Director of Transportation wasn't too happy with that, but we did make a small start where some of the indirect costs would come back to pay for our historic preservation and our non-motorized transportation facilities. So in addition to the laws, where the money goes is very important. And I think that those dollars then could be used to improve our downtown and invest in our urban core, and invest in our buildings, and invest in our people, and invest in our workforce. But it's very important that we have an organized lobby of citizens to press for those ideas. I'm also running for a 3rd term to do some damage control. As Betsy mentioned, it will be a very painful budget cycle. And so we will have to fight hard to preserve funding for the core things that we care about. I'm also on the Economic Affairs Interim Committee, and we're looking at workers' compensation reform. The high cost of workers' comp is an obstacle to doing business. So if you have ideas along those lines, please also contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Michele. Thank you all very much. I know it's difficult to try and get a lot of things said in about a 3-minute time frame, but I hope you'll appreciate that we all are on limited time and we want to try and move things along. With that, what we're going to do is move into a question and answer session here. A few kind of ground rules that I put together. If you're going to have a question directed at a particular candidate, what we're going to do is allow the opponent of the candidate to also respond to that question. I think it'll give a good difference if there is one, or a good consensus if there is one. We want to discuss as many issues as possible that affect our downtown. So if you have questions specific to what these candidates can do in Helena to impact our downtown, those would be kind of the preferred questions, I think. Also, we want everyone to get an opportunity to talk. So if you feel like you want to be able to answer a question, just raise your hand and we'll get through there. I think there are a lot of issues that affect downtown. We'd like to move through as many as possible, so I don't want to get too hung up on any one issue for too long. So I may kind of just move it on past that. So with that, let's kind of open it up to some questions. And I would ask you, if you have a question, please stand up, speak loudly and clearly so that the candidates can hear the question. So let's start that off, Brent.
During the last legislature, tax increment financing was an issue that was brought up, and that's an incredibly important tool for downtown redevelopment. Can you talk to us about tax increment financing and your beliefs or support or opposition to that mechanism?
Anyone in particular, or are you just down the line, real quick answer on it?
Michele would be a good place to start. She knows the question about that.
Thank you for the question, Brent, and I definitely appreciate learning more on tax increment financing. I support it. I think it's an important source of revenue for local communities. Unfortunately, I feel like there are a lot of things that don't have adequate sources of revenue, and we need to find good sources of revenue for those projects. And I know you have some more ideas along those lines, including with gas taxes and such. But I think there are some folks with some misconceptions about TIF districts. I know Elsie Arnson had some constituents who complained about it, so she brought some legislation to undermine it, and luckily that legislation did not go anywhere. I do think that it is potentially something that we might need to play defense on and defend again in the future.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I too support tax increment districts. It's sort of like mom and apple pie. It's hard not to. And one of the reasons I do, because I've lived in Missoula since '72, and I've seen the great strides made on the riverfront and projects done over the last 30 years that the tax increment district has allowed to be done without raising general revenue bonds and the like. And it makes sense to me. And I would imagine, as Michele said, we probably will have to play defense.
Does anyone else have any comments they'd like to address to that question?
I just wanted to add that I support tax increment financing. Oftentimes it goes to a very divided committee, the tax committee. And what I would encourage, because it's a complex mechanism, is that the more people that we can get out to testify on it, the better off we are, because it's a little bit obscure and people don't always want to dive into something that is as technical of a financial tool. But I do believe in these times it's going to be important to preserve, because I know it has done quite a bit for our downtown and our river front properties, and I wouldn't want to see us lose the opportunity to be as forward-thinking as we have been in using the tax increment financing tool. So I would just advocate that we stay, folks here in Missoula stay really present, because it often is a very contentious issue and not very well understood.
Sure.
Well, I can add that while I was on council, we created the Riverfront Taxing District, and then we also went out to Brook Street and created that in the expectation and the hopes that we would be beautifying the area, improving it. So I definitely support it, because I've seen the benefits of it.
Thank you.
I suppose I should say that I support it too, since my opponent just did. I would just share that Luann just talked a little bit about that, and I couldn't agree more. My predecessor, Dave McAlpin, had worked pretty closely with John Engen on this. Mayor Engen, of course, has endorsed my campaign, as well as 6 members of your current city council, in large part because of my passion and interest in this issue. I think that, as Tom so sagely said, it is like mom and apple pie. It's an easy way to do it. I see Ellen Buchanan in the audience here, and I'm sure she's nodding her head, so that's it.
Thank you. Another question?
With a show of hands, how many of you have read the Downtown Master Plan? Thank you.
Go ahead.
On the heels of Linda's question, and maybe on Brent's as well, the Downtown Master Plan quite heavily reflects the idea that downtown should become even more pedestrian friendly. What do you see that is possible for you as a legislator over the next 2 years? What do you see that you can do that will make that more possible?
Anyone in particular? Or we'll just open that up. Michele, and then Tom.
Phil, one of the things I did last time was, again, try to reallocate some of the funds that we send from Missoula to Helena. A lot of those funds get redistributed throughout the state, and they don't come back to us. So if we had not only a Department of Highways, but a Department of Transportation that looked at bikes and sidewalks and buses, we could work to have a more walkable, bikeable, busable community. The other thing that we can do is require the department that when they redo roads, that they look at everything within the right-of-way and install pedestrian and bike facilities as they redevelop those roads. So we get that infrastructure as we go. I think it's also difficult to get that infrastructure subdivision by subdivision. Subdividers often fight putting in pedestrian facilities, and that's a challenge. I think we need to make it easier in the regulations to have subdividers pay their own way, because those costs of installing infrastructure are often shifted to the community. So I think that's an important piece too. And we'll have to look at it in terms of the takings issue with the Clark Fork Terrace, that we get those adequate pedestrian facilities, not just along roads. Thanks.
Thanks, Michele. Tom?
In 2003, I introduced a bill that would have required pedestrians and bicycles be included in planning. That bill didn't pass. But what I'm trying to say is you bring the issue up, and you bring it up often enough, as someone said here previously, sometimes it takes several tries or a generation to get those things moving forward.
I'd like to say something here too. Since I will be representing, when elected, my constituents are up there in House District 99, which is not close to downtown. I decided to do a little polling in my area here the last couple of days and ask people, particularly about the downtown area, what do they see is things that they'd like to see change downtown in order for them to want to go downtown more often. As you probably know, we don't have a lot of entertainment up our way. We have Meralts. Yeah, and a few bars. So, you know, on a Friday, Saturday night, or any night of the week, it's fun to go downtown Missoula and to eat and drink and listen to music and socialize and be with our friends. The general consensus was 3 things that I heard. One was transportation. There is a need for transportation to be able to come up to our area, which is from Arley on down. That's reliable, that's affordable, that provides a service to people who may be inebriated from having, you know, a few drinks at the bar, who maybe have disabilities, who can't drive themselves down. The next thing would be to figure out some way to have the safety concerns addressed. There was quite a few people who in our area on House District 99 say, you know, I really like Missoula, I really like downtown. However, on almost every corner downtown, there's a scariness factor of people who are panhandling. People have been murdered downtown. And so there needs to be something addressed. While you can have people say, yeah, Missoula is a walking town. Like I love Sandpoint, Idaho. I go there on vacation quite often. But it is a walking town. Missoula, in order to have it a walking town, there needs to be better security. There needs to be, I believe, some type of presence by law enforcement that is a non-threatening presence by law enforcement to provide a little bit more safety before you have people who want to go walking downtown all over the place, going to the different places to go. I mean, like you see First Fridays, and it's great, and people are walking around in groups. But on a typical Tuesday night in February, the only people that are really walking downtown, a lot of them are the homeless people. It needs to be addressed in terms of safety, finding somewhere in ourselves as a community to address the safety issues, transportation issues, and I guess the biggest issue in order to make it a walking town as well would be to provide better sidewalks, provide easier access for people with bikes, and not have people rely on parking downtown, trying to find a place to park to start their walking. There needs to be a general plan to where people look at downtown as a walking area instead of a driving to area.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Teresa.
I just wanted to briefly follow up that I live on the south side of the river. My husband and I live in what we politely refer to as the box. If you're going south on Orange Street and look to the left, we live in the square, flat-roofed building with the solar panels. We walk downtown all the time. It's one of the reasons why we chose where we live. I think that some of the things that we can do to support it from the legislative point of view is looking at and supporting federal funding, supporting matching funds from either the state level or opportunities to make it clear that local governments or local units can match funds, to make them available to match with federal funds to address things like light rail, transportation, et cetera. The other thing I would say is that I did serve one session on the local government committee where we looked at the subdivision laws, the improvement districts, and all of those things that I personally see as part of what I call community health on the bigger scale. I think sidewalks and curbs are part of a public health infrastructure. So I would figure out ways to support that, and there may be funding that we could look at related to addressing obesity.
Thanks. One more comment on this one, and then just part of the ringing, one of the comments was, when you're done with the mic, turn it off. When you need it, turn it on. And that may alleviate some of the back ringing. One more comment on this issue, and then we'll open up, I think Dick had a question. Ken?
Linda, I haven't read all of the downtown plan. It made me very sad. Most of it that I read and the pictures made me very sad. But I would like to know what the downtown feels is a hang-up to a walking downtown. I've lived in the Missoula area for 33 years, and I live on the west side, and I've walked downtown several times from my home, and I don't understand what the problem is. You're talking walkability. I see that we have, as a driving community also, since we draw a lot of people from the outlying areas and out of state, that we have an incredible problem with pedestrians that don't look both ways and just take off across the street, and bicyclists. And so I'm trying to understand what you are considering a more walkable downtown. So that information, as a legislature, I would need to understand that. And I'm not too impressed with trying to get federal funding for this. We should be able to do this on our own, since we have these tax increment areas and things like that. And I thought that's part of the reason why that the downtown had their tax increment area, was to improve sidewalks and the lights and the crosswalks and things like that. So I would like to have further information on it.
Thank you. Did you have a question? I saw you, so go ahead.
I think it's pretty simple to say that the vitality of downtown is closely related to the vitality of the university. And we've all talked about, several of you talked about education. All of us in Montana have a big stake in education, but are we just paying lip service to that goal when we're not willing to put up the resources necessary? Teachers in Montana are some of the lowest paid in the country. 200 school districts in Montana, teachers are facing huge increases in health insurance. Their only benefit when their salaries have grown. And the University of Montana has seen a steady decline in state support.
Who wants to take that first?
I would like to take that. Because one of the reasons that I ran for the legislature is I was raised in eastern Montana, in Baker and Conrad, and so I have a real warm place in my heart. And I wanted to get to know those people again and see what kind of issues they're facing. Schools are closing. Grade schools are closing. Brady goes to Shoto and maybe going to Conrad because we had to change the law to allow them to reconsider. Winifred goes to Lewistown. I mean, so eastern Montana suffers a lot. And let me tell you, when you try to talk about education, there are people in this state who don't believe in education. They don't even barely believe in high school graduation, less than higher education. So it's a difficult subject to talk about, and I was shocked to find that out, but it's very true. And so I think part of the initiative that the University of Montana is about right now is trying to show our economic contribution to the state and to Missoula, but I also want to say that we met with the Y last week, and they talked about the University of Montana partnering on a 3-year pilot project that they're going to do to start with 6th graders and follow them to 7th and 8th grade with an exercise and weight control program, and keeping kids involved in healthy lifestyles. So I think the University of Montana does all kinds of volunteer things that we don't know about as well. But we need support on education, lobbying for education, talking to people from eastern Montana, helping people understand what a difference it makes. You can show all the evidence you want. You can bring the facts and the figures and evidence from other states, but they're going to look you in the face and say, this isn't important.
Thanks.
I'd like to take a swing at education if I could. First of all, I'm afraid, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm afraid we're entering a time period, I don't know how long it's going to be, where things are going to be different. There isn't enough money. We are facing some economic hard times, and I don't think as a government we can spend our way out of it. Certainly not as a state government can we spend our way out of it. And that's what I was referencing when I said there's going to be hard choices. I'm talking about choices between funding schools and funding sidewalks or bicycle paths. I don't know what the choices are going to be. But I think once we have a clear picture of where we are, then as a total legislature, we need to work our way through that and problem solve collectively. In terms of education, the statement yesterday at the forum was, I thought it was interesting, it's not publish or perish at university systems, it's partnership or perish. That's a new era, and the University of Montana is pretty well down the road on that. The state is not the major funder of the university system. In the K through 12 system in Missoula, as an example, 90% of our budget goes for personnel. When 90% of the budget goes to personnel, that doesn't leave much for any kind of capital improvement. You can buy a piece of chalk and a new chalkboard and maybe fix the window. So one of the things I would like to position our state for, it probably is going to take a while, but I think as a state we need to begin looking at ways that we can permanently fund capital expenditures in local districts. I would envision some kind of matching program. I think I grew up in eastern Montana. I know about the issues of 6 schools with 50 kids each. Of course, sometimes they're 150 miles apart. But I think with the possibility of some capital help from the state, we could begin to consolidate some school districts. Rather than using the big stick of closing them, I think the carrot of we could get you a good facility, we could get you the kind of technological services across the state, we could do remote learning in a realistic and useful way so that a kid sitting in Circle, Montana can sit in on Mr. Johnson's calculus class in Missoula. I think those are things that have a future. I believe that we may have lost an opportunity just recently with the one-time coal revenue, $85 million that came out of the school lands. It did go into the school fund, but the net gain for the school fund was zero because it came off the top to balance. I think if we're serious about education, if we really believe, if you really believe, as I really believe, that education is the key to a healthy and strong society, then yeah, we better put our money where our mouth is. But we also better think outside the box.
Thanks, Don. Bryce, you had a comment there?
Yeah, I just want to touch on real quick that, I guess I'll add also that I also grew up in eastern Montana. But, like I said in my first speech, and like I've told everybody that I've talked to at the doors over the last number of months, education is absolutely a piece of what grows our economy. And, when we're talking about priorities, I think education has to be at the top of the list because it can't just be, that talking point. It's actually a piece that's going to move us forward. And, as somebody who went to grade school out in Lolo Elementary, who year after year saw our mill levies fail, I know exactly what happens when we stop funding our education system. We lost teachers, we lost programs, we lost projects, we lost, utilities and buildings. I mean, piece after piece, and it just broke my heart recently when I saw that Lolo once again decided not to vote for their school levy because that small amount of investment by each person, the way that we come together to support our education system means that children are going to have opportunities. We're going to be able to pay our teachers a living wage, and we're going to get good teachers who are going to be able to stay in our state after they've learned, and gone through their education program at our university. So I believe that education has to be our top priority. I think that teachers are paid too low. And those are the things that I'm going to fight for in the Montana legislature.
Thanks, Bryce. We're going to have one more comment on this issue. I think you were fine.
We'll share.
You'll share? Perfect. You'll share.
We're so darn cooperative.
Yeah.
I would say that personally, I've not paid just lip service to education during our last few sessions. We haven't perhaps been able to fund as much, but we have made more of an investment in funding education than has been done in previous years. We did support Indiana Education for All, and we have done some support on the state level for distance learning. One of the things that we learned during that presentation on the budget in February was the overall speech that people talk about, that education and systems are going to have to change, and we're going to have to do things more efficiently. And I have some, we have the nursing program is taught over distance learning. We do classes over interactive video, webcam, all of those things. And I think that I would support those kinds of things.
Real quickly, let's get to the point. We give a tax breaks to oil companies when they discover oil in Montana the first 18 months. Why do we do that? It might have been okay at $10 a barrel, but $75 a barrel, that's nuts. If we collected that tax, that would help reduce some property taxes and things like that. I think that's what Dick is sort of talking about in a way. We want some services, but no one wants to pay for them. The other thing that I would say is, echo a little bit of Teresa said, we need to get a 2-for-1. And by that I mean the Running Start program that I initiated and is now between the schools and the university system, allow families and kids to figure out, hey, I can take this class here and I can also get credit for it. So we know resources are going to be hard to come by, so how can we get twice the bang for our buck? Are there places we can get 2 for 1? Another example would be we took welfare money, gave that to the schools and said, okay, you do your adult education with some of this money. So we got people on aid to families taking classes, and the schools got the money. It's a 2 for 1 type of deal. So we got to look for more for those 2 for 1 issues.
Thanks.
Do we have time? Do we have time for?
Let me hit Kandi, and then you come back, but real quick so that we can move on to another question.
I'm sorry, I kind of got pushy there. As a mother of 6 children, I know exactly what's going on with the school system, the education system, why there's no support, because the education is so poor. Now, all of my children have gone to school right here in the Missoula area. I have 3 children that attended the University of Montana, 2 of which found it one of the most extremely boring situations in their life. I think that you lost a lot of the children going to school, to homeschool, and to various private schools. I think that it's time for the education system to educate on academic levels, because the education system has turned into more of a social education, and that does not produce academic abilities that are needed in the working world. When you are graduating students that can barely read or write or do fractions, and I know as a business owner, I got many people in my business frustrated at the young people working in the mall that couldn't even do 10% off. So I think that if you push toward academic achievement rather than social achievement, that you'll see an increased interest. The Founding Fathers set up the public school system. Many people don't understand that, but they did, because they knew the importance of a well-educated citizenry, and they did this and they pressed it on the states. That's what needed to be done, and that was an academic system, not a social education, environmental education system. Thank you.
Thanks. Real quick, Brian.
I would like to just make this very brief. My daughter is a teacher in Montana. She's a graduate from the Montana school districts. She went to Western. Yay! Anyway, make a long story short, I do believe that funding for education is not just necessary, it's one of the most important things that is we're facing right now in our future. Our children are our future. It's just not a bumper sticker. However, I do believe too that our primary school system is, if not broken, it's not doing its best job. I do believe that people should have the ability to, and I would support a voucher system, to where if you would like to have your child go somewhere besides a public school, that you would be receiving the same funding for your child to send your child to a public school or a school of your choice, depending upon your own educational beliefs, your own religious beliefs, and your own wants for your own children. And there are schools that are very good in Montana, and there are schools that are very poor. And if you live in an area where your child has no choice but to either go to a school that isn't doing very well, has a very poor report card, such as a school that's in our area, you have one other choice, and that is to pay for your child's education out of your own pocket. So I would highly support a voucher system to where parents and their kids get the choice. It's always been a good idea, I believe, to privatize as many things as you can, and a private school district or a private school in a lot of times will do much better than a public school if given the chance to be able to have the funding and let the people who support it vote by their dollars. And if our tax dollars are going to be going towards education, we should be able to vote with our tax dollars where we want our kids to go to school.
Thanks, Brian.
You bet.
What we'll do to respect everybody's time, if there's a question that somebody has real pressing, we can address that and just open it up to a couple people. What I want to make sure we have an opportunity to do is just everybody have one last say very quickly, and I will cut you off if it runs too long so that we can respect our facilities time as well. Did anyone have any question that they really wanted to make sure we got covered? Brent?
Homelessness is a huge issue in our community. It's at a I think it's kind of an emergency level for our downtown. It goes back to healthcare for the homeless and substance abuse. So, and I'd like to start with Ellie. Ellie, what do you see needs to be done at the state level and I know the resources are short to help solve the problem.
I'll do this. We'll let Ellie and Luann answer this one since they're both in the addressing the same thing, and we'll get their opinion. Then we'll go through and let everyone have just a quick minute to finalize. You'd like a piece of that? You three, and that'll be it. Thanks.
All right, so there's about 37 million Americans that live in the poverty level. That's about 1 in 8 Americans. So I assume when you're talking about the homeless, you're talking about a certain demographic in the downtown area. So we'll make those assumptions first. And then I'll tell you that the National Coalition for the Homeless, as well as the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans, tells you that when you plan a city, you need to plan for a little bit less than 1% to serve your homeless population. The city is not doing that. So for example, in Billings, they have about 270 beds for the homeless. We have 70. And so when you know that your infrastructure is not available to meet the needs, then you have organizations like the YWCA and the Missoula 316 Rescue Mission, the Salvation Army, and of course the Poverello Center, turning away all kinds of different homeless demographics. So that's what I'll say, one. We do know how many homeless people we have in Missoula, by the way, because the federal government counts them once a year. And in fact, Missoula has less homeless people than Billings. So again, it's reflective of a portion of our population. Again, Missoula just does not have the public facility and infrastructure to meet their needs right now. That said, I do think there are things we can do at the state legislature to curb this. First and foremost, quit cutting money from the Department of Public Health and Human Services to serve our mentally ill. The second is the most atrocious thing that I think this community does not wildly understand is that your prison system and your jails and your state mental hospital release people into homelessness. And I think that we can legislate that, we can stop them from doing that, and you can see a lot of these sort of most vulnerable, the folks that will fall off their meds and then become co-occurring, so mental illness with that substance abuse, which again we see visibly as addicts in downtown Missoula. A lot of that will go away. And then, of course, the thing that Betsy talked about is affordable housing at all levels, even entry-level housing. We have to see more Section 8 vouchers, supportive housing, even for the mentally ill. So those would be, and I could go on, of course, for a while.
You know, I do appreciate what Ellie has done through the Poverello and the fact that we now are more aware of this problem. And I agree that it's a complex problem, and how you get to be homeless is in a number of ways. You can lose a job. It's people who are on the edge to begin with. Being aware of how we create homelessness is probably the first step that we need to take to educate ourselves. People who are mentally ill, the Health and Human Service budget is one of the biggest ones at the state, but it also took a $17 million cut through the governor's proposal. So you see that the most vulnerable tend to be the ones who get, well, I want to say it in a nice way, who don't have a voice, who don't have people representing them unless we are representing them to say they need support as well. So I think there's a lot that we can do. I know people feel there's a difference between being homeless and being a problem on the streets, shall we say. But we need to identify what the issues are and what we can do, and the more awareness we have and the more we educate ourselves, then we can bring, as a community, work together for those solutions.
Thank you. Don?
I'm entering my 6th year as a board member of a private organization called Missoula 316. The good news is most of you haven't heard of us. We operate on a smaller level and try to fill a niche. The bad news is most of you haven't heard of us. But I guess one of the things I have learned in my 6 years of struggling to provide services to the homeless is one size does not fit all. The homeless population has a great deal of variety in it, just as this room does. Some people require more services than others. Some are interested in getting out of their situation, some are not. And so when we do a broad-based prescription, we usually run into trouble. Maybe I'm becoming a little more challenging in my old age as I did a little challenge on education, but I don't know that homelessness is the downtown's problem. I don't know that homelessness is the problem of the Poverello or even of the problem of 316. I think it's a community problem. And I think as a community, we need to get involved. As a church community, we're not very involved. I'm sorry. There are a handful of churches that help out our private organization. I won't embarrass anyone by naming who they are. The problem is I can name them. We tend to think homelessness is someone else's issue and that these people don't belong to us. As an old teacher once said to me when we were quarreling about who's going to get the poor geometry students, everybody's got to take up space somewhere. And I think that with the homeless issue, we have to understand that we're going to have a homeless population as a total community, private as well as public. We need to deal with it. I don't believe that it's possible to deal with it with just the public sector or just the private sector. But as individual citizens, I think we've turned pretty much a blind eye to it. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what I've seen.
Thank you. What we'll do now is, I appreciate all the comments and questions that everybody had. We'll just move quickly down the road. Kandi, we'll start with you. Just something that you would like us to take away from here today about you and about your candidacy that will stick with us. And a real quick, your elevator speech, 30, 45 second type thing.
The thing that I would like you to go away about me today is that I will not be a put-on legislator. If you contact me, if you have something you need, I definitely will stand up.
Thank you.
I wish I had a little bit extra time to talk about the affordable housing issue, and I would be happy to talk to you, Brent, or any others afterwards, because I think that Don and Ellie really hit upon some important pieces. And my experience in developing affordable housing in Missoula and around the state is, and advocating for it on the state level has really helped me understand some deep issues that we face here in Montana. But the one thing that I'd like you to take away, I really listened to my constituents. And this last April, I had parents contact me right before the end of the legislative session. They were ready to propose a bill to me. I had to inform them that unfortunately that section of the legislature was closed and that I would work with them throughout the legislative interim to get it together for the next session. It's been an intensive process. I am always open to your phone calls, and I think that the core piece to the Montana legislature is you have access to your legislators. We represent 9,000 people, probably a little bit more once we see the 2010 census. But in essence, I just want you to know that I do listen to you when you send your emails, if you have concerns, and I put it into action.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming today.
I would like to say I believe that our biggest challenge right now as Americans, our biggest challenge as Montanans is big government. There is never a better time than now to think about how our government has spent our money and spent us into the poorhouse. It's not that we don't have enough money for the services, it's not being spent correctly. What we need to do as taxpayers is we need to stand up and say to our elected officials that we're tired of the way the money's being spent. We're tired of the way that the government has been spending our money into the poorhouse. We need to privatize a lot more businesses. We need to privatize a lot more avenues that the money's being spent. Like I said, for one thing, education. Health and Human Services is another big one. We don't need to rely upon nonprofit organizations to do everything. We can have private for-profit organizations that take care of mental health services and do a much better job than the government does. The money that's being spent towards mental health services from Warm Springs should be reevaluated. We're seeing down the throats of the average taxpayer, the beliefs that the government will be taking care of them, we need to stand up for ourselves and start taking care of ourselves and each other and become an actual community rather than just thinking that, well, others will do it. We need to take care of ourselves and our community.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't have any real summary that I'm going to tell you about myself, but I wanted to say that mental health, drug and alcohol treatment, all of that has been cut really for the last 30 years, and that we're incarcerating people instead of treating people. And Karen Orzak talked about that yesterday when she talked about DUI. It affects all of our lives. Walking and biking downtown, I was in the trailhead the other day, and I was amazed at the amount of traffic that came off the footpath along the river, and so I'm excited about the downtown plan, extending that path down to Burton, and I think we can have even more dynamic downtown. We did pass a virtual academy. It's happening out of the University of Montana, and that's one way we tried to promote education to Eastern Montanans last time, is we're going to teach calculus out of the University of Montana or out of high schools, as Don said, to students across the state. So we work hard, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. Ellie?
Real quick, so I went to 12 years of Catholic school, so I was taught not to toot my own horn, but my friend Jason Weiner, before I came in, said you better toot when you have a wonderful opponent who has a lot of city council experience. So let me tell you who is endorsing my campaign. Your mayor, John Engen, 6 current members of the city council. So that's Jason Weiner, Marilyn Marler, Roy Hausman, Stacy Rye, Pam Walzer, Bab Jaffe, quite a few legislators, Senator Ron Erickson, Representative Dick Barrett, who actually lives in my district. Another notable endorsement was Montana Conservation Voters has endorsed me over my opponent. That represents about 35,000 Montanans and members statewide. I know that I have proven to you time and time again that I do have the education and the eclectic personal and professional background to be a champion for Missoula, and particularly for downtown Missoula. So thank you much for having me here.
Thank you, Ellie.
My endorsement sheet is in the back, and I am running on my own merits. When I go door to door, people still remember what I did for them when I was on city council, whether it was fixing a pothole in the backyard or helping them wander through the bureaucracy of trying to get their property rezoned. My passion is because I went through it myself, feeling that I didn't have a voice in my city government. My passion is connecting people to their government, letting them know that they have the power. They are the constituents. We work for them. And that's what I bring to this race and to my desire to be at the legislature, to represent people and let them know that I will listen to their issues and respond and work for them.
Thank you. Don?
You're lucky. When I go to door, they say, oh, I remember when you called me because I skipped 5th period. I had an interesting conversation in our neighborhood. Rang a doorbell. The guy came to the door. We had a nice chat, and he said at one point, well, you look familiar. Have you run for office before? Are you in the legislature? I said, no, as a matter of fact, I'm not. I'm a political virgin. And he thought that was wonderful. I say that because I've had a very comfortable life the last 8 or 10 years, living up at the end of the Rattlesnake with 2 horses, my wife, and a cat. Sometimes, now that I'm into this campaign, I wonder why I ventured out. But I want to tell you, I ventured out because I have a very deep concern about the direction we are going and what is happening. And I also have some guilt that people like me have been sitting on my hands. And I am ready to serve, ready to get involved, if elected. If not, that's okay too. I'll go back to my 2 horses and my cat. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
I just wanted to say thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting us. And I would love to have your ideas, your concerns, and also your support to go back to Helena for a third term, which I imagine will be a tough session. And I have the knowledge of the players, the process, and the policies to defend the things that we care about and to work toward the things and the vision that we have to invest in our young people, to invest in our community, and to invest in our future. I think one thing that we can do more effectively as a community is build coalitions and alliances with communities that have similar interests, and I would encourage you to contact downtown associations in other communities and start building those ideas with them for things that you would like to see at the next legislative session, and to also work with them to play defense. And I think we can all be more effective by building those alliances. And I think that we can work in a bipartisan way to accomplish some common goals. We will have to make difficult decisions, we will have to make cuts, but I think that we can preserve critical services and have a balanced budget and do more with less, and we are working to do those things now. Please let us know your top priorities as we move forward, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Bryce?
Thank you so much, everybody who came to see this panel today. I really appreciate you all coming out. I just want to close by saying that somebody brought up lip service today, and I think that that's a very interesting thing, because a lot of people will go out there and say, well, I support this issue, or I'm really behind this, and this is what I'll do in the legislature. But in my case, I've done many of these things already. I've fought on campaigns to make sure that people weren't, mining using cyanide and destroying our rivers. I've fought for healthcare reform to make sure that people weren't, going into medical bankruptcy. I've worked for, to protect, minorities, like, with the recent thing of the Missoula non-discrimination ordinance, which I think is fantastic. And I've fought in the legislature. I've brought hundreds and hundreds of students to the legislature to argue for more education funding across the board. So these are things that I'm not just telling you I support and believe I would vote for in the legislature. These are things that I've been in the trenches fighting for all my adult life. And these are the things that I'm going to value and fight for in the Montana legislature. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Teresa?
I'm going to pretend we're only on a 3-story building, so the elevator is going to be really brief. I've been a nurse and a nurse advocate for healthy communities for more than 30 years. A healthy community means someplace that is safe enough to walk to work, the water's clean, the air is clean, you can walk on your sidewalks, old people are safe, you have food to eat, etc. That's all part of it. I have experience that helps me try to resolve those issues to make them happen.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for coming. I think Senate District 48 is really lucky to have 2 well-qualified candidates to drive home safely.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. The Downtown Association thanks each and every one of you for coming and spending the time. And thank you all for sticking around till next month.